So we're here to do part two of our lectures, and I hope that I will be able to keep within time because last time I thought I only did around 20 minutes and it turned out I think it was longer than that. So I think some of the parts got cut. So I'm just gonna try to pick up where we left off. So today, we are going to discuss the actual declaration of martial law. Let's wait for this slideshow there. I'm gonna move my chat bubble here once again. I mean my camera bubble. Okay, so because of the reasons mentioned, where there was a communist threat, there was violence and the bombings and the assassination attempts, and there was massive poverty on on September September 21, 1972, Marcos declared martial law. Now, this is not supposed to be if you read the books, a lot of them write down martial law as declared it was declared on September 23, but there's so much evidence that states that on September 21, 1972, Marcos had already declared martial law but kept it secret. So he kept it secret so that he did not make it public yet. So he would be able to do whatever it is that he wanted to do, like arrest some of the people's the opposition. He already arrested some of the opposition. He put everything in place already, and once everything was in place, then he made declaration of martial law public. So it was a very sneaky thing to do for Marcos. Another reason why it's very difficult to just take his word, for stuff. So it's very hard to take his word at its base, whatever. Like, it's very hard to trust him. So the declaration that he signed is Proclamation 1081. So Proclamation 1081 was a proclamation that Marcos signed so that martial law would be declared. So now, starting now, martial law was already official in the country. Now, what powers did Marcos have during martial law? Man, I got scared by my own GIF. I did not remember that I put it there. So, what powers did Marcos have during martial law? Now, I know he was not as powerful as Palpatine or Darth Sidious, but he definitely had absolute power. Within the confines of the Philippines, Marcos could pretty much do whatever he wanted. There used to be three separate branches of government: the legislative, military, and the executive, and he kind of merged that into one, and he became one branch of government. So everybody was under him, even the constitution. In fact, he drafted a new constitution. That is why in our list of constitutions, after the 95 constitution, we have the 1973 constitution. So now we have the Malolos, 1935 the Commonwealth, 1945 the independence one, when we were declared independent from the states, and then now we have the 1973 constitution. No, man. So that basically was the definition of the power of Marcos. No one could oppose him, aside from the fact that he made sure that no one could lose him. He, of course, jailed a lot of the opposition already. Now, Marcos wanted to create this idea called the New Society. He wanted to rebuild the Philippines. Well, I drink water once in a while. He wanted to reform the Philippine society based on his ideals, based on his standards, and what he considered to be what makes a great country. So that is the new society which Marcos wanted to build. I am going to, after these lectures, there will be a worksheet You will learn more about some of the programs that Marcos developed during the new society. Now, before we go to and discuss more details about martial law, we're going to talk about the main characters of martial law. So, we're going to discuss two main characters now, and then we will have another kind of we will discuss the next main character later. Now, of course, the first main character that we have been discussing, this is his signature, is Ferdinand Edralin Marcos. So Ferdinand Marcos, I'll move it back here. Ferdinand Marcos is our first main character for martial law, of course. Okay. So we're going to talk about him first. Now, Marcos was, now I'm not, I'm a little bit confused actually. Hmm. Which do you think? I'm guessing this is Marcos. Anyway, but this is his family picture. I just can't pinpoint which one he is. He was born in Ilocos Norte. So he was born in Ilocos Norte, and his father was a lawyer and a congressman. So since he was a young kid, he had grown up around politics. So he had always seen what political life was like, what political life meant, what it meant to be in politics. So that is his childhood, okay? When Marcos, he was educated, he was educated there, and then eventually he moved to Manila and he studied law in the University of the Philippines. I guess he's always wanted to be that. So he studied in UP College of Law. And actually, look at that. UP tops bar when he took the bar exam, which is kind of like the board exam for lawyers in 1939. He was the top notcher, meaning he was number one. He scored the highest point. Look at his scores. 100% for criminal law. 100, meaning, grabe, perfect. 100% for international law, 100% for legal ethics, 98% for civil law, 97% for procedural law, 97% for commercial law, and ironically, his lowest score of 95 was political law. So that is that is really quite ironic for Marcos to have a very low score in political law. But look at that. Look at his average. That's unprecedented. Like that's a very high score. And if you have parents or family members who have taken the bar exam, you know that this is a very, very hard exam that they have to, I mean, a lot, there are ambulances ready outside the place where you're supposed to take your bar exam because a lot of people actually have like a mental or emotional breakdown during the test. Can you imagine? Pero si Marcos, easy. He topped it. Okay? Now, in UP also, it was very significant for Marcos because this is where he joined this fraternity, the Upsilon Sigma Phi. Okay? Upsilon Sigma Phi is a fraternity or a group of men who form an official bond. Now, he's not in this picture, but he was a member of the Upsilon Sigma Phi, and he met a lot of his most loyal followers. Later, when we discuss further about Marcos, you're going to learn this word, crony. Cronies were friends or family members that benefited the most from the Marcos reign. They became so rich because of him. They had new businesses because of him. So these cronies were really benefiting from Marcos, and he met a lot of them here in Upsilon Sigma. After he became a lawyer, he was entangled in a case involving this man. I really don't know where to put my bubble head. Okay, there. Okay, maybe that will be the safest place. There was a case with Julio Nalundasan. There was a case involving him. Oh, this is a very controversial case because Julio Nalundasan was actually the political rival of the kuya of Ferdinand Marcos. Okay, so his kuya, who was in Ilocos Norte, was also kind of entering the political field, and Nalundasan was his political rival. Um, one day, and then it seemed to be that Nalundasan was the favored candidate by the people. So murag, he was really going to win the elections. And then after that, one day, Julio Nalundasan was, I guess, brushing his teeth. So he got shot. He got shot out of nowhere. He got sniped out of nowhere, and he died. What a weird turn of events. And then when there was an investigation, it turned out that all fingers were pointed to the Marcos family, particularly Ferdinand Marcos, who was said to have pulled the trigger. He was a sharpshooter. This man was a sharpshooter, and he was said to have pulled the trigger, which killed Nalundasan. And so, obviously, since there was the writ of habeas corpus was still around, he was sent to court, and he was found guilty. He was found guilty, and he was given the death penalty pa jud, si Marcos, ha, for this case. And now, of course, Marcos could not just, this would really derail his political career, because this man, Marcos, really wanted to be president. He wanted to rise. So Marcos was just kind of like, man, this has to go away. So what he did is he and his family, they were able to form an appeal, and then this appeal was taken to the Supreme Court. So before, regional court pamanto, because of the appeals done by the Marcoses, the Nalundasan case was taken to the Supreme Court, or the highest court in the land. And when they were there in the Supreme Court, Marcos Dayan said, Ferdinand, I'm the top notcher of the bar. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to represent. I will be my own lawyer. Char, that's so hard. You're gonna be your own lawyer. So you're facing the death penalty, and you'll be like, I'll defend myself. And lo and behold, because of the brilliance, and he was really a brilliant man, because of Marcos's brilliance, because of his the gifts that God gave him, he was able to overturn the death penalty. So instead of the death penalty, he was set free. I don't, this would have been a case that I would have loved to watch. Like, this would have been quite, quite a session, a court session. Grabiha, oy. And then after that, oh, and interestingly, you know who the one of the judges, because in the Supreme Court, it's more than one judge. I think there are 10. There are 10 judges in the Supreme Court. One, the deciding vote to overturn the case of Marcos was actually, drum roll, Jose P. Laurel. Look who's back. Jose P. Laurel is back, and now he is actually one of the people responsible why Marcos was not given the death penalty. Okay? I'm not saying that Jose P. Laurel was like a collaborator again. I'm just saying, man, it's ironic. Now, after this case, you know that there was a war. I mean, World War II struck, and Marcos was, of course, called because he was trained in the civil arms training. You remember that, the ROTC? Because he was trained there, he had to fight in the war, okay? But it was said that he was a prisoner of war. He was not really able to do a lot of fighting, but weird kaayo ni. He served in World War II, but his father really became a collaborator of the Japanese in Ilocos. The father was a publicist of the Japanese, meaning he promoted na the Japanese are good, the Japanese are kind, Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere is not a bad thing. Ooh. And then so Marcos and Ferdinand Marcos Cono became a prisoner, which is weird because after the war, after everything, he kept bragging that he won all these. Do you see these medals? These are, like distinguished Medal of Honor. He won 33 medals and decorations, Goodall. 33, that's a lot. And then he kept bragging about them. He would display all these medals and say, oh, yeah, I was a hero. I was a great war hero. And, people didn't really fact check if it was fake news or not. So they were like, wow, Marcos, you're a hero. So they actually, this story actually was very useful for him because this story actually made people vote for him because they thought they would be voting for a war hero. So he actually won. He became congressman and later he became senator. But of course, later on, when the military, both the Philippine and American military, investigated his claims, they really could not find proof. All they found was a story that Marcos may have been a prisoner of war and did not really participate in the war because he was captured. So how on earth did he win all these medals? Gonna be 33? If this is true, no, nga he won 33 medals, he would be the most medaled person in the world, even more than MacArthur. So it was like, news, he did not check. Now, oh, sorry. Let's put it here. Okay, now, Marcos, as you can see, was now a powerful guy. He was a senator. And these are the friends that I told you. These are some of the friends who became some of his most loyal supporters. These were the cronies, okay? The cronies. Oh, spoiler, the cronies were his number one supporters. Good. They were loyal to him, and loyalty was very important to Marcos. Even if you were not so smart, even if you were not a graduate of any college, but if you could prove to be loyal, then you will be very valued by Marcos, and Marcos will really give you a position in government, and he will really give you favors, so to always keep you loyal. Okay, and then after that after that so Marcos was senator. It was during this time that he met his future wife, Imelda Marcos. So we're gonna talk about Imelda Marcos now. Why do I put Imelda Marcos and Ferdinand Marcos together? It's because these two were really partners. They were political partners, and I will show you a book that somebody wrote later, and then after that, you're going to realize, I hope you will realize that these two really work together as a perfect political team. Okay, but before that, let us go to Imelda Marcos's life. Now, Imelda Marcos was born to a very rich political family in Manila. However, as years rolled by, particularly with the father, he lost a lot of the they got into financial trouble. They really got into a lot of financial trouble. They became poor, and then after that, they became poor, and then they had to move to Tacloban, which is, anyone from Tacloban here? I'm sure if you've been to Tacloban, you would see the house, the huge house that Imelda had built, had pa-build there. So I think it's a shrine now. It's called Santo Niño Shrine. But if you've been there, you will really see how big and extravagant it is. Okay, so anyway, so uh we have here Imelda Marcos, and then she had to go to Tacloban. She lived a simple life there, but she was always part of pageants and all of that. I mean, she's a very beautiful and very charming woman. Uh, they they said that one time I was in a political rally. I forgot, my tita, when I was staying in Manila with my tita, she brought me to a political rally, and all of a sudden, while I was sitting there, all of a sudden, all these security men came by, and then I was like, oh, what's going on? Somebody important must be arriving. And then it was actually Imelda Marcos, and she sat beside me. So I was there, and I was like, oh my gosh, Imelda Marcos is sitting beside me. I mean, I don't like her. Like, I find her fascinating as a historical figure, but like a lot of the things she stands for, I don't like. So I was like, oh my gosh, Imelda Marcos is beside me. What do I say? Do I do something? And then she looks at me. She turns her head to me, and she's like, hi, good evening. She greeted me first, and you're like, good evening. And she's like, so what brings you here? And I was like, oh, my tita brought me here. And then she's like, oh, that's nice. That's good that your tita is allowing you to watch these kinds of things. And I was like, and then I was in a conversation with her. It was a very casual conversation. I doubt she remembers me. But I got to experience a little bit of what they call the charm of Imelda Marcos, because for those 5 minutes that we had a casual conversation, I seem to have forgotten everything that she has ever done before. And I was enjoying the conversation with her, and I was very charmed by her because she was really talking to me like like man, she really had a gift. Like she really had the gift of charm when she was talking to me. It was kind of like, oh yeah, and then you started to literally like her. And then when she got up because she had to go up on stage, and I was there, and I was like, wait, what just happened? I was like, why was I engaged in a very friendly conversation with a political figure and a historical figure that I had like I mean, I really did not agree with. So I was like, oh man, the charm of Imelda. It's a very powerful thing. Her charm was a very powerful thing. So when Imelda Marcos was a young lady, her charm was already a large part of her. So she was actually favored by, she got a lot of, pageants. She joined a lot of pageants. She started to become this really popular girl. And then after that, when it was time for her to go to college, she had to go back to Manila because her dad thought that that was the only place where she could go, and she actually wanted to be a teacher. Can you imagine how different Philippine history would have been if Marcos received the death penalty and Imelda became a teacher? It would be very different. It would be a very different Philippines indeed. So when Imelda went to Manila, she really wanted to be a teacher. So she actually studied education. And then after that, of course, you know that did not really turn out the way it turned out, because when she accompanied her cousin to a hearing, a congressional hearing about the budget, it's so random that she was brought to that thing. She joined her cousin in that budget meeting, and then she met Marcos. Actually, I don't know if they met, but Ferdinand Marcos noticed her. It was in the canteen, and he was like, "Oh, isn't that Imelda Romualdez?" Because that was her maiden name. She was like, "Isn't that Imelda Romualdez?" And he knew that she came from a history of a large political family. So he got very interested. Aside from the fact that she was a very beautiful woman, he approached her because he knew that this would be politically beneficial for him. Now, when they met, Imelda was kind of like, oh, okay, hi, yeah, yeah, yeah. She did not really pay much attention because so many men were courting Imelda in Manila during that time. But Marcos was the most persistent. Marcos would go to her and visit her because after this event, actually, she had to go to Baguio with some cousins. Marcos Apas, like, Marcos really went to Baguio. Marcos really went to Baguio. Hold on, teacher. Uh, hold on, teacher Anna's calling me, and I'm looming. Hold on. Okay, I'm just gonna pause this for a while. Okay, so I'm sorry about that interruption. So I had to just deal with something. Where's my other earphone? There it is. Okay, so let's continue our lecture. So we have Imelda Marcos. They met. Where did I stop? Oh no, I don't know. Okay, so anyway, Imelda Marcos. I don't know where I stopped. So anyway, when Ferdinand Marcos met Imelda, I think there was really he really knew that she would be a great asset to him as a wife. Okay, so now Ferdinand Marcos really wanted her to be his wife, so he insanely pursued her when she went to Baguio. When she went to Baguio with her cousins, he went there. He already brought a marriage certificate, a marriage certificate was already drafted, and all Imelda had to do was sign. And he would press her and press her. He kept prodding her, Imelda, please, I don't think I can live without you. You really have to say yes, I'll die without you, like that, like that, like that. And her cousin po, sige, ingon nga, that guy, he might be the next president of the Philippines. Are you really going to turn down the opportunity to be first lady? So Imelda was like, after only 11 days, the two got married. Man, 11 days. After 11 days of Marcos prodding her and, her thinking about the situation, they got married. And when they got married, thus began the political ascent of Marcos. And Imelda did not sit in the sidelines. Before Imelda Marcos, when you are when you are a wife of a politician, before, you used to just kind of stay home, went to social events, party, dinner, brunch, like that, like that. But Imelda was not like this. Imelda really took her role as the wife of Marcos seriously. So when they would campaign, you know what campaign is? Kanang mangampanya. Kanang when the politicians would go to the streets and meet the people, they would be on stage and kind of talk about their political, platforms and all of that. Uh, Imelda went to all of this. In fact, to some provinces, she even went without Ferdinand Marcos. She would go there on her own, and then she knew how to speak Bisaya. She knew how to speak Waray, so she would go to the Visayas and she would charm everyone. If you vote for my husband, like this, like that, like that. She would sing because she had a nice voice. She would sing for them. She would do all these things, and the people loved a good show. Filipinos love a good show. So when they were watching Imelda Marcos, they were like, "Oh, nice! Surely we're gonna vote." So actually, because a large part, the efforts of Imelda, she really brought Marcos to the presidency, and Marcos always called her his secret weapon. Imelda, my secret weapon. Imelda, my secret weapon. Like this and like that. And she brought him there. She was called the Iron Butterfly because she was so beautiful, but she was tough like iron. She was really tough. She was charming. She was politically brilliant. And she used instinct. She had very good political instincts because you have to remember she did not finish college because she was on her way to become. Wait, did she finish college? I'm not sure, but she did not finish her career because she was on her way to becoming a teacher. But then things got stopped when she got married to Marcos. When Marcos was president, Imelda did not play in the like she played in the front field. She was not a bench girl. Nga kanang naala, okay, lingkod lang ko diri, honey. I'll wait for you. She went on diplomatic missions. Here is Imelda with Prince Charles. Here is Imelda Marcos with Fidel Castro. Here is Imelda Marcos with Gaddafi. Gaddafi is a terrorist. He was a terrorist, and then they would meet, and then she was able to sign, she was able to get them to sign peace treaties, and then she was a diplomat. She was able to make deals with them. She was really good. That Imelda, her signature was just as powerful as Marcos's signature when she would be on like a diplomatic mission like this, and then they would come up with an agreement, and it would be her signature there. It was as good as Marcos's. She was really that powerful. That is why I said earlier that they were more than just husband and wife. They were really political partners, and Marcos depended on her a lot, really a lot, a lot. Okay, now if Marcos had his cronies, Imelda also had her blue ladies. Okay, so Imelda Marcos also had a group of girl friends called the Blue Ladies. Now, these Blue Ladies started out as a group of political wives. They would, have tea or whatever. They would talk. And then later, they became her squad. They became her squad. And then they would go with Imelda shopping. Imelda would give them money to start their businesses like Rustan's, Citibank, or the entry of Citibank here, not Citibank itself, but the growth of Citibank here Kana, Rustans, particularly Rustans, man, she invested so much money in her Blue Lady friends, and they were kind of like the female equivalent of cronies. I think her most famous crony was the wife of Henry Ford II of Ford Motors. She was really grabe. And her shopping became more and more excessive. So we see here Imelda decked out, fully decked out. She was rumored to have spent $3.3 million in one shopping trip. It was like a trip, and she was just shopping and shopping and eating out and all of that. And she spent $3.3 million. Not pesos, dollars. During this time in the 70s. I mean, 3.3 million now is even big. How much more before? It's staggering. She loved to shop. She had a very extravagant lifestyle. Yes, she was a politician. Yes, she could have people sign peace treaties for her. But she was also, she spent a lot of the money that most that belonged to the Filipino people, and she felt like she deserved that. She really felt like she deserved that, man. Imelda. There was even one story wherein Imelda would have a party in her house, and then when she would show up for her party, she would go down the stairs and she would have like a handful of diamonds that she would throw to people, and she loved watching all these rich and powerful people struggling to get diamond. And she'd be like, haha, that's how powerful I am. Man, man, Imelda. Okay. Life under martial law and the reaction of the people. How did people react to martial law? Remember, this spanned a very, very long time. It was a long, long span of time. So, how did people react? Now, a lot of people reacted to this negatively. They kept calling the martial law era as a dark period of Philippine history, particularly for these reasons. Okay, the first reason is there was massive violation of human rights, particularly in relation to the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus. So many people who opposed Marcos, so many political enemies of Marcos were captured and tortured and jailed and killed. Even one particular right, political opponent of Marcos. I'm going to mention two, but this is one in particular. He wrote Conjugal Dictatorship. This is what I was talking to you about how Ferdinand and Imelda shared power and their claw-like control of the Philippines. So this man, Primitivo Mijares, he this guy, he wrote Conjugal Dictatorship, and it really spoke of the corruption of the Marcoses. Okay, so he was not shy about talking about that. Now, shortly after the publication of this book, he became desaparecido. Desaparecido means he disappeared out of the face of the earth. He was all of a sudden taken. Nobody knows up to now. Nobody knows what happened to Primitivo Mijares. Nobody knows. He just disappeared. He vanished off the face of the earth. And there is a popular theory that he was tossed out of a chopper. Like there was a helicopter and he was tossed out. That's why his body probably I don't his family they still don't have answers to this question because they don't know what happened to him, but he really got taken shortly after the publication of Conjugal Dictatorship. Now, if you think that this is horrible, wait till you hear what happened to Primitivo's son. Now, this is Luis Mijares. Okay, Luis, his nickname was Boyet. Luis Boyet Mijares. Uh, After his father disappeared, of course, they were so stressed. There was somebody who kept calling the phone. Now, not his cell phone, there were no cell phones before, landline. And somebody probably said, nga, Oy, I know where your dad is. You have to come you can come meet me. I'm going to take you to your dad. So this phone pal this phone pal of Boyet, um, he said, "Meet me. I have information about your dad." And when this is something, if it's a stranger who calls you on your, hey, I have information. Never, never, never trust strangers. Good. Okay, stranger danger. So this is an even if you just kind of trust strangers like that. So when Boyet Mijares went out, own pal of his, he was never heard of again, and the mom was frantic because she just lost her husband and now she can't find her son. So she was frantic for 2 weeks. She did not know what happened. But 2 weeks later, they found the body, and he was tortured because his fingernails were plucked out. He's a little boy. His fingernails were plucked out, and there were 33 pick stabs all over. That is really a horrible thing to do, especially when you do it to an especially when you do it to a child. So this is just one of the human rights violations people felt was really all over the place during martial law. And if you and I told you that I already mentioned before that I went to a seminar about, like, a conference about martial law, particularly with this whole issue of calling were like around 100 martial law victims who were there, who said, "Oh yeah, definitely. What do you mean? No torture? No torture happened. We were tortured. We were jailed. Some of our friends, some of our loved ones have been killed, and we are here to tell the truth." Because the Marcos family now, they're trying to paint a different picture. That is why this is something that you should never allow to happen. Whether you are pro Marcos or not, that doesn't mean that you will deny the truth. Okay? Don't deny the truth just because you are loyal to someone. Okay? Now, probably the most famous victim of martial law is Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. Okay, so he was not the only victim of martial law, but he's the most popular, I think, victim of martial law. Now, we have to discuss Marcos because, sorry, Aquino, because he was the most celebrated opponent of Ferdinand Marcos. Now, he was from Tarlac, and he was also born to a rich family of hacienderos. Okay, hacienderos are landowners, so they had tenants and all of that. His grandfather was a general in Emilio Aguinaldo's army. Oh my, Chanel's pic. So wait, I have to take a picture. Man, sorry about that. I just had to take a picture of her. It's so funny. Okay, her movement. Sorry, my mom messaged. Um, now, so we have here Ninoy Aquino, who is the biggest political rival. He grew up in Tarlac. His father was a general in Emilio Aguinaldo's army, but sadly, his father was a collaborator during the Japanese era. So I think Ninoy Aquino grew up with something to prove. He wanted to prove that, unlike his father, he was not a collaborator. Okay, he won't be a collaborator. Now, I think I should pause here because I don't want this recording to be too long. So I'm going to retract, and this will be the beginning of part 3. Okay, so we'll stop for now. Bye.